Go ahead and get started here one last time. Please, everybody, mute your microphones. And if you have not, please list the name of your program behind your name for housekeeping purposes for the event to make sure that you get credit for being here. All right, guys, I want to thank you for signing in this morning. It's probably a lot easier than trying to be out there driving. Having done this coaches meeting now for 3 years, my name is Todd Sukit. I'm the president of Bothell Lacrosse. Once again, having done this 3 years, this is the best looking meeting I've seen. You guys all look great. We'll go ahead and get started. I'll go through this quick. I want to get everybody out to who has to shovel and who doesn't, but if you do have questions, please step in. Otherwise, at the end of the session, we'll have a question and answer session for everybody. As I get started here, I want to welcome you to the GELL for the new coaches. We're going to be going through some rule changes and points of emphasis, how just kind of basic housekeepings on how things work at the GELL, game changes type of thing. And then, as I mentioned, any questions you may have. GELL is the Greater Eastside Lacrosse Club. We have 3 divisions for playing. We have a 3rd and 4th grade division, a 5th, 6th, and a 7-8. I kind of really haven't updated. If there's somebody back there, could you please mute your microphone?
Oh yeah, totally. But we'll like walk
We
around.
have a lot of background noise.
I mean, I'm not overly concerned with it. I think I rescheduled their appointments for today, so we'll for sure make it. Yeah.
We can hear that. We can hear the whole conversation, guys. Please mute your microphone. Thank you. At the same time, though I have not updated completely, the 7th, 8th division has changed, as you know. We have a what's now called an 88, and 7-8, and a 7-7, and this is for competitive purposes. What we have done is we have moved teams that either want to play up or have 2 teams, so they have tryouts, will be in what used to be called the 7-8A division. Any team that has 1 team would be in the 7-8 second division, and any of the second teams would be in the 3rd division. Any of those teams can play up, but if you have 2 teams, you cannot play down. This has been explained to the program directors, so if you do have any questions on this, please take it up with them, and it can be explained. For purposes of the boundaries, we follow the basic school district lines. There are checks of your players by your program directors, and this is a very strict policy, and it is followed. This year, and obviously this is just an overview of the rules and the changes. It does not mean that you guys don't have to read the rule book or know what's out there. But some of the key, and obviously I forgot to change this slide, but these are the 2019 rule changes and points of emphasis. Some of the biggest ones are regarding targeting, whether a player starts with a legal hit and goes up to the head or neck, or hitting a defenseless player. They will be called for targeting. This is a 3-minute non-releasable penalty and ejection from the game. And with any ejection from a game comes a 1-game penalty. Also, the next game the player cannot play. So please go through this with your players. Be aware of it. It will be called. And the referees on the field will make the call and be supported. So be aware of this up front. and it should help. Work this into your coaching plans this year, and just take the hit out of the game. There was also a change in what constitutes a legal hold with lacrosse. Under the new rule, holding with the portion of the cross which is between your hands is now legal as long as the hands are no more than a shoulder width apart and the pressure being applied by the defender is equal pressure to the pressure from the offensive player. Basically, it's what's been done for years. They're just kind of clarifying it in the rules. Third one is a clarification of what is the warding off rule for offensive players. It is illegal for the offensive player with two hands on the cross to push their opponent with the cross to create separation. However, it is legal for a player with the ball and two hands on their cross to contact the cross of their opponent using their arm. So in other words, if he drops a shoulder and comes into their cross, that's legal. But they can't just use their arms to throw a guy out of the way, even with the connecting cross to cross. Language was updated for the players releasing on a face-off when using the small-sided game format. Basically, this doesn't affect us because we're not using a small-sided game. And then last, each coach is required to name a defender at the start of the game who will serve penalties for teams that dress only one goalie for that game in the event the goalie is charged with a penalty. It's no longer the at-home where you grab an attackman and he's always there. It must be a defender. Next is kind of our points of emphasis this year. Sportsmanship. It should always be a point of emphasis. But this year, players, coaches, spectators, you guys are going to be held to a very high standard. Violations of the rules involving conduct or sportsmanship can result in time-serving penalties for violators. Communication with and by the officials should be calm, professional, and businesslike. Guys, we're going to go over this when we talk about the officials a little bit, but I'm going to say it up front again. We have our 15 to 18-year-old high school kids that ref these games. Most of these kids, if you got them out in nature with coaches from the start, would not even be able to say 10 words to you guys, and we're expecting them to control games. They do a damn good job. They don't need guys in their face thinking you're Vince Lombardi or whoever. We need to show not only our kids and these officials, we show our kids how to react properly to the officials, and we show the officials respect. Are they going to be right all the time? No. We don't even get it right when they're professionals, so why should we be expecting this from 18-year-olds? They're going to miss a call. It happens. Talk to them at timeouts. Talk to them rationally. Let them know. We have the MBO program. There again, we'll go through it where they do get trained. But at the same time, coach your team. And I'll get off my soapbox. Thank you. The targeting, that's a point of emphasis. We talked about it a minute ago. Same thing. No, it's going to be called. Illegal contact when holding the crease. There again, we talked about it. And we don't have too many coming down to us, but Lacrosse every now and again likes to throw experimental rules at the junior level to test them out before they go to higher levels. There's no new rule changes from the GELL down this year. How things work around the GELL. We're pretty easy. The league role is to provide you rules, a schedule, and referees. Each one of your programs has a voting board member, and that person is your conduit to the league. The league's rules are published at the website. You are responsible for knowing the rules and abiding by them. Simple point. Ignorance is not an excuse. I didn't know that. That will never fly. And later we'll cover any changes. There were none, so nothing there. Schedules. Schedules should be out the week of the 22nd. They're in for getting field spacing and things like that, so you should have them for your players. 7, 8, and 5, 6, your first games are March 2nd. 3, 4, the first games are on March 9th. K through 2, that's going to come out later through Brandon as they get that set up and established. Most of the K through 2 games, I believe, will not start till after April. There is the coach contact info is on the website. To browse your opposing team's page, you'll see it there. If you need something or something needs to change, contact the opposing coach, work out the new date and time and location. Just remember they are not required to accommodate the change, but we're all in the same boat. We're all working. We all have things that happen. We have things that come on. 99% of the time, the coaches you guys can work it out and get it taken care of. After everyone agreed on the new arrangements, send an email to the league scheduler, Yuri Pretzler. There's his email address. And the format to use is you put the existing date and teams, then you put the new date, time, and location for him. As we come up about adding extra games or changing the schedule of the games, there will be no midweek games. We will provide refs for. There again, most of our refs are high school players. They have practices and games midweek. And if they have games, it means the high school officials or older officials that are non-high school kids are reffing those games. It is nearly impossible to get refs for your games. The only midweek games will be the ones that are scheduled by the league in basically the last week or so of the season in May. That's by then most of the teams have wrapped up their schedule. But if you schedule a midweek game, it will be rejected. It says here they're not guaranteed. We're just going to reject it. Sundays are open for any additional games. Sundays we can get refs. Sundays are a great day. I know it's hard on some families and religious values, but that is the day that if you want additional games or need a makeup game, that is when it needs to be scheduled for. Once again, if you're going to add a game, send an email to the scheduler with that information, and it will be added to your schedule. Some teams, due to number of teams in the division or so, may have a bye. If your team does have a bye, the league is working to fill those gaps with a team from outside the area. You are not required to take the game if we offer it to you. But usually we want to make sure we find you a full gamut of games, and so if there is a bye, we do try and fill it. This information will flow back through your program director or board member. So you're welcome to do it on your own, but it just kind of gets complicated. If you do have a bye, you see, and you already have scheduled a game, let us know, and we will go ahead and get that in, so that way we're not working with other teams and confusing the situation. Referee assignments. They will be assigned, but you're not going to be able to see them. They're assigned through a completely different system. If we can't get refs for your game, you'll be notified the game is being rescheduled. As of what I know, last year we did not have any of these. However, we occasionally have games where only one ref is assigned due to we do have a shortage of them. We're always looking for more new kids, and obviously it just happens. Or a player doesn't show up and he gets caught in traffic or whatever. There's multiple things you can do. You can postpone your game. You can let one ref do it. Just be aware that if there's no refs there and you play with non-certified refs, this does cause a problem with the U.S. Lacrosse insurance in most cases. So if there are no refs, please let us know so that game can get rescheduled. But if there is one ref, there again, he's going to do the best he can do, but be aware that he is one person. Lastly, do not send an email or text to the scheduler or the board saying, do I have refs for my games? Assume you have refs until you don't. But there again, we're not going to answer that question because most of the time, the refs aren't even assigned to most of the games until Wednesday or Thursday anyway. Please remember, and you should be getting these, at the 3, 4, and 5, 6 games after the game, we run and honor the game ceremony. This was a program that was actually started through the GELL and has grown from there. It's why we run the youth program. It's what's there for the kids. A lot of the kids look forward to this. And please, on the honor the game ceremony, it's not about the kid who went out and scored 6 goals. It's not about, it's honoring the game. Who was out there? Who might have only been on the field for 7 minutes, but at that 7 minutes he busted his butt and did everything he can. We want to honor those kids as much as we want to honor the kids who score 6, 7, 8 goals. Honoring the game is about the guys that actually were out there doing the game. Please learn a little bit about the game from the program director so that you can describe the ceremony to the parents as it's done, and make sure you get your stickers. Behavior. I hit it earlier. There's a couple websites or a couple videos on US Lacrosse, and there's one on, I still believe it's on the GELL website. Watch the videos talking about sideline behavior. MBOs, master bench officials. We have that program in the GELL, and we've been doing it now for, I think, about 4 years. We have it's a master bench official. He is there for 2 reasons. He's going to be watching the sidelines, the spectators, and for basically your conduct. He can penalize the coaches, he can penalize spectators. He is also there to watch the officials and watch the game. He is there his number one thing that he is there for is to talk to those officials and train those officials. He's not there to throw a flag because somebody missed a minor slash or hold going on the game. He's going to talk to them at halftime. If he sees egregious penalties that are missed, he can throw the flag from the sideline. Once again, I emphasize, egregious. That blindside hit, that big slash, things like that that need to be called, that are safety issues. If it's a judgment call based on he thought this guy was held or they were offsides or different things like that, he's probably going to talk to the officials at the next break, but he's not going to call the penalty. That's not what they're there for. They're not a third overseeing eye on the sidelines. They're there to train. Please remember this. The officials were not able to join us today, so I'm going to go a little bit through. Kind of brought up the master bench official. I've talked about the officials and our role with them. Guys, I can't emphasize more as coaches. You're not just coaching your team. You're actually coaching the officials. There again, we're teaching them how to be assertive, communicate with you, and learn to grow themselves. If they're constantly put in conflict because of your behavior, these guys aren't going to communicate with you. You go up and talk to them. You may not get the answer you like, but at least they're going to talk to you and give you an answer. Now, they may be wrong, and that's where we can help them grow and go. But this is not a situation where one call for 90% of our league, doesn't have playoffs, doesn't have a championship, except for a very small portion at 7-8. So I look at everybody from 3-4 up through even 7-8, the guys that are going to the playoffs. Nobody's jobs are online here. Nobody's paycheck. Nothing like that is online. These one call is not going to be put on SportsCenter for the next 30 years. It is a game with kids up through the 8th grade. Let's remember that. And so let's talk to
Johnson. No, seriously. It takes.
What's that? Okay. It is a game out there for these kids, and these guys are learning. I'm not going to say you're not going to be upset over the call. We all get upset over the call. But let's think about how we approach these referees and how we talk to them. That is what I'm asking. I'm not saying that you should just take it and everything should be hunky-dory and fine. None of us are wired that way. We wouldn't be into coaching if we were. But at the same time, we can look at how we talk to them, how we approach them, how we handle it, because how we handle it is how our kids that we coach are going to handle it. And so, let's move forward in that aspect. Once again, we're going to have the MBOs out there. I think they're going to be at roughly about 70 to 80 games this year. The games out there will have an MBO on the field training. As with every year, roughly 40% of the officials that are on the fields are brand new officials that haven't ever reffed a game. Early in the season, the officials are working through which officials they want for the rest of the season, which ones are doing good jobs, which ones are doing bad jobs, so that they can also work through them and they start not scheduling some of the worst ones and they schedule the better ones. Last thing, if your officials are good, send that email through your program director. They'll forward it up. The only emails I can tell you in the last 4 years I've been doing this, and I'm sure some of the program directors can tell you, out of 50 emails a year you might get about the officials, I see 5 about these guys did a pretty good job. These guys were okay. These guys communicated. The other 45 are about how they missed calls. They did this. This was all bad. At the same time, as much as we look through and see what's there, most of those emails, I can tell you, if that's all we see from you, are going to be ignored. If you tell us how they're doing good and we get one from you where these guys were bad, that actually takes precedence, because it's not every email we see from you. And so we're going to look and see what you have there. The squeaky wheel in this case doesn't get the grease. Understand that. If you do have kids and or even adults that want to rep, get them signed up. We're always short on officials. The more officials and more kids we get signed up doing this, then we don't have problems with finding officials or developing good officials. So on that note, I'll go ahead and open it up for any questions that people may have.
Yeah.
Who's this? Anybody got questions?
What is an MBO?
MBO is a master bench official. It's as I mentioned, it's a training official that will be working around the table. It could be walking the sidelines. He's there.
I'm sorry. We cannot hear you. There's somebody who's not muted.
Can you please now remute? Thank you. The MBO is a master bench official. He is there to train the officials in the game. He's to walk the sidelines. He can be by the scorer's table. He's there to inspect, kind of grade the officials as far as their performance, but at the same time help train, and also if there's problems with if we've heard there's problems with coaches, there's probably going to be a master bench official at your next game watching sideline conduct. So I hope that answers the question on what an MBO is. Any other questions?
Hey, Todd, Tom Chase here.
Yeah,
Real quick, the 3-4s are still playing the small-sided game, right?
that is correct. 3-4 is still on the small-sided field, so they're turned sideways. That is correct.
Yeah. So that rule in the beginning, I think you implied that didn't apply to us, but that would apply to 3-4s, yes?
3-4 is on the face-off, but we have also set kind of our own rules that they would. The GEL rules would take primary over the U.S. Lacrosse rules, and we have implemented, a couple new face-off rules that we used during the fall ball about the face-off guy must make a pass, and so that again, I would say refer to your 3-4 rules and then that one.
Okay, so that's all available on the website for anyone who wants to check then.
That is correct.
Yeah. All right. Good. Thanks.
Hey, Brandon Savage here from Cedar Crest, kind of along those lines, and I realize I could go on the web and probably get this answer, but on a face-off on 3-4, where are the attackers and defenders supposed to line up or can line up? Because I think there was some debate about that last season, at least in a few games.
It's still kind of under debate, and I apologize. I have not gone through that deep on the 3-4. Because I know we talked about it, and there again, I was out of a couple meetings this winter, so I'm sorry. Best thing is a check. I will also check on myself and send out a bulleted point information on 3-4 as far as where the attack and defenders can line up. I know last year some were using GLE, some were using point up on the main thing. I will check and make sure and find out exactly what point that we're using this year.
Great, thank you.
Todd, this is James Inglemore.
Yes.
When you're speaking, your voice is kind of muffly through our phones, and when others have asked you questions, they sound pretty good. Are you on a speakerphone or something?
Not on a speaker, on the computer headset type situation.
Okay, no worries. Thank you.
If I didn't get clear enough for everybody, please let me know, and I'll go through a couple points again. I don't have an issue with that. So, sorry, I was hoping this headset would get through this.
So Chris Santini put one in the chat. He asked, can you give an example of what we constitute as targeting?
Sure. Targeting, especially at the youth level, since no body checks are really allowed in the youth level as far as knockdown checks. But to give an example is a body check. Somebody comes through with a clean body check, but their hands with the stick raise up and catch the chin, helmet, or neck area. That is going to be constituted as a targeting rule because of contact to the head or neck area. It really kind of follows the guidelines of football in a way. Another targeting situation is going to be the defenseless player. In other words, the kid who's got his head turned, catching, and doesn't really have his feet down or turned to be able to brace for that hit, and as he's turning around, he gets blasted from the backside. That is going to be targeting. A third example that I can think of is you got a scrum of kids and somebody comes in and just lowers their helmet to blast through the scrum. They're leading with their helmet. That is going to be a form of targeting. Those are three, examples. But the last one, probably not as likely to happen. The defenseless player or the hands going up to the neck or head. Those are probably going to be your classic forms. The neck or head one with the hands going up, that's going to be a really subjective call for the officials. It's going to be a trigger point. The defenseless player one, guys, we know it when we see it. Guy hits his feet on the ground and he barely turns around and he's blasted. Yeah. that's going out of every game. It's just not going to happen. The best thing I can say there is I know we want to dislodge the ball and everything, but go for the stick. Tell your kids to take a step back, play defense, play the defense when he turns around. They've got to see that player that it's just not going to take the blindside hit anymore. I hope that answers the question or gives you an idea.
Hey, Todd, can you hear me okay?
I can.
So you mentioned that if a player gets a targeting foul, that they'll be ejected from the current game. You also mentioned that he will have to sit out of the next game. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is a GELL rule. If any player is ejected from a game, they are automatically also not eligible to play in the next game.
And for
Okay, thank you.
And for further clarification, ejection is different than fouling out. If you foul out, meaning that you get 5 minutes or more penalties, the player does play in the next game. They're just out of the rest of the current game.
A targeting ejection follows the same as like a fighting ejection, just to clarify, like Bernie said. Fouling out is fouling out. You just get your minutes, just like in basketball. You foul out, you play the next game. Basketball, you get ejected for fighting, you throw a punch, in this case targeting, same thing in football, you're out the next game. So it really comes down to the type of ejection, which it becomes a personal foul type of situation. So you would be out fouling out for, you got 5 minutes and slashes and you're out the game. You're back in the next one. Does that answer it, Jordan?
Yeah, that does.
Okay. Anybody else?
Hi, Todd. My name is Jason Walters. A question on the targeting rule being called subjective. A lot of teams record the videos of their games. Is there any type of appeal process? Refs make mistakes. Wrong guy gets called. He was not the culprit, did not cause the penalty. And if they can prove that that's such the case, that the wrong guy has been called for the penalty, is there a way we can appeal that so that guy doesn't get suspended? Or if the call was a mistake by the ref and clearly did not constitute targeting, is there a way to appeal that?
I believe with every ejection, whether it's fighting, unsportsmanlike conduct, whether it's a coach or anything, it all goes up to the GELL executive board for their review. At that point, you would take it through your program director to ask them to have it reviewed. And at that point, they would be able to constitute an answer down to you. Am I wrong? Am I right on that aspect there, Bernie?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
So yeah, to answer your question, yes, there is an appeal. I'm just going to put it out there to you guys. If it's subjective or close, it's going to have to be clearly not targeting for them to overrule the refs. If you think it's just close and we really don't think it's this way, they're going to support the refs and their decision at the field. So when you look at that video and you look at it and say, yeah, I can see where they did it, that's exactly what the board's going to look at and say, yeah, I can see that call. It's going to have to be clearly not, like you said, they got the wrong number and they ejected the wrong kid. Well, at that point, the board's going to say, you're right, it was 43, not 34. 43 is out the next game. So at that same time, be aware that if it is the wrong number, they're going to sit the kid that should have been sacked. Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, is it possible for us to get a roster of our opposing teams prior to games?
My information on that is that would be up to the opposing coach if he wants to provide it, but we will never unlock opposing teams on league athletics for the fact is the privacy issues for the kids. You get the roster before the game. that's put into the books, but they're not required to give you a roster ahead of time.
They are required to do it at game time, though. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
This is Brian Smith. Just a quick question on clarification on targeting. The ejection will happen with intentional targeting as well as the targeting that winds up jamming the helmet. Is that because I can see an inadvertent situation, but would that still be considered intentional targeting and ejection?
There again, that's a matter of how the refs are going to be taught and coached on this. I wish that, like I said, they were here to kind of give us a little further explanation on that, but it's something I can ask Waloa to give us an explanation on how they're going to adjudicate that type of thing. If they're just going to adjudicate unintentional where it slides up and hits it as an unsportsmanlike penalty, a 3-minute misconduct, unreleasable but no ejection, then that's how they adjudicate it, then that's how we'll go with it. If they're taught to adjudicate even though it's a slippage and it goes up and it's going to be an ejection, then if there's an ejection, then it comes with the suspension.
All right, thanks. So there's a possibility that it won't, and there's a possibility that it will. That's
right.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Looking at the rule, it looks like to me it's the intentional targeting that is going to come with the automatic, but the like you said, where they come in and it slides up under the neck where it can be a slip, it's going to be an unsportsmanlike without the ejection. But it's all an interpretation on how Waloa and U.S. Lacrosse are coming down to teach the official.
The referees organization has consistent guidelines to teach the referees. However, remember these are kids with various personalities, and some while they try to make it consistent, because of the variables in these kids' personalities, you are going to get a variation in terms of enforcement. So I would have a conversation before the game starts with the referees if you have any areas of concern.
Thanks, Brent. That's a great idea.
And
there was one question.
And I'll take it just a second here. I will say I will get with the officials and get a point of clarification for that, and also send out the 3-4. So any of these I am writing down so I get a clarification out to everybody. Okay, your question, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Todd, this is James with Inglemore. It sounds like we have a lot of conversation around targeting. Has there been a problem with targeting in the past? And also the idea of having the pregame meeting with the refs and the coaches, I think, is a fabulous idea.
I wouldn't say there's been a problem with targeting in the past. I would say what it is it's U.S. Lacrosse taking that next step as everybody is and being wary of concussions, neck injuries, that type of situation. I do know, the coach has been here longer than I have, or different things. You usually will see 1, maybe 2 of those blindside hits a year. One of the things you usually see with the sliding up to the neck, and this is why I'm in agreement with the one coach where you see it as accidental, are the taller kids on the shorter attackmen where they're not bending their legs and the stick slides up into the neck area. Are the kids, in all honesty, being lazy and not getting their body down and hips, and they just play with their strength. So I wouldn't say it's a problem. What I would say is it's just a matter of safety, and everybody is moving that direction.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you.
Hey Todd, there was a question in the chat, and I share it as well. When do rosters have to be submitted?
Just going with Bernie there, I believe.
Yeah. I'll answer that question here for a second. So let's see. Rosters. All right.
I believe it's 7/8's the only one that's got a locked roster, correct?
Yeah, all rosters need to be submitted. So let's see. It is on February 23rd. So there's a schedule on the homepage of GELL that has all your dates, but I'm happy to answer here. Yes, so February 23rd, all GELL rosters are due.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep.
Barry, this is Tom here. There's sort of two clarifications there, right? So one is just a list of all your players to do a scrubbing to make sure they're in the right club, right?
Correct.
And the other part is that you have to submit and lock down your 88, 78A type team.
Yeah, for those programs that are large enough to have more than one team at the 7-8 overall division level, you'll have a team that's 7-7 and one that's an 8-8. And yes, you need to lock those rosters. So you'll need to identify. You can use the same roster that you submit with the players, but you will need to designate for those teams.
Yeah, my point being, you don't have to lock down your 3-4 and your 5-6 rosters.
That is correct. Yeah, you do not.
That is correct, and you're just the rosters that are due on the 23rd are mainly for scrubbing purposes to make sure that we have everybody in the right programs.
Correct, and I think in the past it's to lock down your 88 roster. It just had to be done before the first game.
I believe you're right. It's like about 2 days before the first game or so. That during that week is when your 88 roster has to be turned in.
Yes, that's correct.
People having tryouts and everything. They don't know by the 23rd what their team is yet. So
yes,
correct.
That's correct. Yeah, it's for the scrub. So the GELL directors are the ones that would submit this. The coaches don't need to worry about this. But yes,
correct.
Yeah, for the 23rd, it's for the scrub to make sure players are in the correct program, and I guess however many days before the first game is when it's the lockdown of 7-7 versus 8-8 teams.
And coaches, we'll put this out there to your directors also. Be aware, it's not just a one-time scrub so that all of a sudden you tell guys, okay, everybody sign up after the 23rd, and if you're not in our area, we'll get you on there. Any player that joins your program after the roster scrub still has to be sent in to show proven that he is part of your program and that he is in the right program. I just want to put that out there. I know nobody would ever think of that loophole, but we as GELL directors, we thought of it and closed it. It's just that way. We keep the honest, and the ones that aren't, we catch you that way anyway. So, but everybody, we've never had a problem with it, but I am just putting it out there. Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got one on 7-8A teams that maybe for numbers are going to field two teams and sacrifice their ability to play 7-8A playoffs. Do we have any teams in that position this year?
Won't know until they submit their rosters and talk.
Maybe.
It once again, yeah. We that type of stuff we don't know until as we come up onto the season.
Thank you.
Hey, Todd, I don't want to beat a dead horse here on the targeting deal, but I do have a couple more questions. Is the game ejection a GELL rule or a U.S. Lacrosse rule?
The ejection the ejection due to the rule is the U.S. Lacrosse rule. The additional game is a GELL rule.
Okay, and how is that additional ejection from the next game going to be enforced?
As far as because there will be an ejection, it'll be written up by the officials to the league that this player was ejected. At that point, if there's any type of appeal process, that'll come through the program directors to the board. But at that point, the board, when they find out there's an ejection, will come down to the program directors and state that this player is not to play in the next game.
That is correct.
Okay, thanks.
And I will say this. Is there going to be somebody there to look and see if he plays or not? No. But this is one that's going to be on the coaches and the board member. If a coach plays an ineligible player that's supposed to be sitting, he will be suspended and up in front of the board to see if he coaches the rest of the season. So it's not a we'll sneak them in type of thing for the coaches. It's on you guys, and you will be held accountable, and you could be taken out of coaching for the rest of the season if you play an ineligible player in that aspect. There's no playing around with that. And right, Bernie?
Hey, Todd, this is Pete Crowley.
Yeah.
Just to build on that, would the opposing coach or the next team on the schedule be notified of that player as well, since you're making some accountability here?
I have done that in the past.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, that's super helpful. Thank you, Bernie. I think that way we can address it as coaches, right? And be like, okay, we understand that Michael is out this game. Can you point him out to the sideline? Right.
Exactly. I thank you, Bernie, on that. And like you said, it helps on both sides, but it's, like I said, just to put it out there for the coaches, I mean, we know our teams, we know who shouldn't be playing, and there again, we need to have that responsibility on ourselves at the same time. It's kind of comes with being the head coach out there, guys. Anybody else? All right, well, gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time this morning. Everybody stay warm and try not to, slide too much on the roads, but I appreciate your time. And this was recorded to be able to be sent out. Head coaches, whatever, if you need it, just contact your program director and he can get a copy of it from Bernie. Anything else, I'll be getting the information out, or if there's any questions you have, my email address is out there. Please feel free to email me, but thank you again for your time.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Bernie.
Thank you.